All right, everyone. It's 2:30, so we're going to get started. So welcome to our inaugural 1883 speaker series. Each series will invite a campus or community leader to talk about how today's student can develop their leadership skills, as well as other advice regarding personal and professional development. We hope you learn some valuable lessons in the next 18 minutes and 83 seconds. So for our first speaker, please join me in welcoming the president of UND, Andrew Armacost.
Hey, it's good to see everyone. Keep going for Mike Wozniak, who put this together. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your leadership. I was invited to be part of this, the inaugural speech of the 1883 series, and they said, speak about all the secrets you need to know about leadership. And I thought, wow, that's a major undertaking. I can't do that. If you're here to find the magic formula, we're not going to give it. And none of the remaining speakers are going to give a magic formula either. But hopefully, you get our perspectives about what it means to be an effective leader and the things that we have found to be effective in our journey through leadership. So I call this the path to leadership, just because everybody's path, you'll hear, is a little bit different. And we think back to the early leaders. I mean, check this out. The first graduating class of 8 people, 6 women and 2 men. And in the middle of the 2 men is Cora Smith, who Smith Hall is named after. And in addition, she was the first physician, woman physician, who was licensed in the state of North Dakota. So when you think of leadership, think of it all the way back to the beginning of the founding of our campus. There's major opportunities there. Now, I actually graduated 100 years later. So in 1989, and my journey took me through Northwestern University in Chicago, but it took me on an interesting journey to get me here to North Dakota and to UND. I spent roughly 24 years at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, not as a student, but as a faculty member, as a department chair, and also as the provost, or what we call the dean of the faculty. And so the formative years there, both in terms of how we delivered academics, but also how we promoted leadership among our student body at the Air Force Academy, was really essential. And I think about my role in the classroom. I think nothing prepared me as much for leadership as actually being a professor, believe it or not. And you'll see that in my remarks today. And then in 2020, I made my way here to Grand Forks, to the University of North Dakota. It was an amazing opportunity that built upon the experiences that I had at the Air Force Academy. Just the opportunity to come to a campus that had a proclaimed statement about developing leaders in action. What could be better in terms of a leader coming into an environment like that? So I was thrilled to arrive. This was more than 3 years ago, and also at a very interesting time, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But my underlying message is leadership is a very human experience, and we see that with all the human beings in this room. We have students, faculty, and staff. And as I think about the way that I lead, I like to do it recognizing the humanity of everybody within the university and within the organization. And I think of images that have emerged in my life, in my short 3 years here at UND, whether it's being honored by students by having a Rubik's Cube mural mosaic made of me. It was odd to see, but I was honored. The chance to interact with alumni and folks like Governor Burgum, and of course with a wounded left hand. I've had the chance to play the cowbell. More cowbell with the wonderful pep band and the Band of the North. And in the lower left, you see my 2 daughters, Ava on the left, Audrey on the right, my wife Kathy with the big green scarf on, and then her folks, Bob and Sandy Hovde, who came to join us for a hockey game. And I said, leadership is a human endeavor, so no better way to show that than with canines, right? Of course, humans love dogs. This was move-in day last year, where we welcomed some dogs to campus as well. People always ask, though, and you'll ask, who are your leadership icons? Who do you relish as the example of leadership? This is a really hard question to answer because there are so many great examples. But I think the best answer I can give you is everyone that I see, everyone that I interact with. I see leadership in every human being on the campus, every student, every staff member, every faculty member. The actions and the decisions that they make on a daily basis are essential to me understanding what it means to become a better leader. And so when I say that, I think of the idea of a mosaic. You know what a mosaic is? It's like a piece of art that has a bunch of pieces that kind of fit together. It could be stones, it could be glass, it could be anything. And when I think of leadership, I think of a mosaic that each of us actually builds upon the experiences and the ideas and the examples that we see in others. And with that in mind, that's how I built my my style of leadership is by observing others. So everyone I see. There's no two better examples of leadership on our campus than Ella and Connor. Ella Nelson and Connor Ferguson. I don't know if Connor made it today, but Ella's right in front here. Extraordinary leaders who have taken the mantle of leadership on our campus to lead the student body and to offer their love and support to them. Now, it's not just the two of them, by the way. Here's everyone who's supporting them. This is the freshman class. This was on picture day. And so when I look out across each of those people, what I see is a leader, somebody who's going to lead in their own way, maybe quietly, maybe publicly like Ella and Connor, but each one is going to lead their own way. It's our responsibility as leaders on the campus to promote that sense of leadership and that development among all of our students on campus. And so my number one piece of advice is pay attention to the actions of your leaders, the positive and the negative, and determine what's going to be your mosaic. How are you going to piece together all of those examples? And furthermore, look at your teammates as well. Look at those. Look to your left. Look to your right. These are the people who are influencing you. I see, good job in the seventh row back there. But pay attention to your teammates because you'll see leadership emerge through their example as well. Let me encourage everyone, students in particular, take every opportunity to lead. This university has over 250 clubs, many elected leadership positions, informal leadership positions, whether it's in Greek life, non-Greek life, whether it's on sports teams. Take the chance to lead. And furthermore, it's not just about leading, it's about learning how to follow the example of the leaders who are leading your organizations as well. And most importantly, get to know your teammates. Know them on a personal level, know what makes them tick, and that will make the team that much more effective. So the other question, in addition to who are your leadership icons, people always ask, what do you read to read about leadership? And oh my, are there examples of leadership? There's Doris Kearns Goodwin, who writes about presidents. There's great examples of leadership through what she's written. The common sense way, of course, because leadership is all about common sense. A lot of people talk about that. Why not apply a PIN code to leadership? Because certainly you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, and suddenly you become a great leader. Brene Brown is a popular author these days, but daring to lead and how you do it, how you show vulnerability. The experts to the executive. John Maxwell has written about 5 levels of leadership. Simon Sinek talks about the why of leadership. There are leadership perspectives from gender and racial perspectives as well. Here's She Thinks Like a Boss. There's the 5 roles of leadership and courageous cultures, all weaving stories about what their experiences are for how to become an effective leader. You too can read all these books. Good to Great, Jim Collins, a noted leader in how organizations achieve effectiveness and how leaders do so. Latina Empowerment, Extreme Ownership. How about the Navy SEALs? Let's hear it for the Navy SEALs. Yay. They write about leadership as well. And the Servant Leaders Manifesto, the GLOW Principle, another focus on women and leadership. And then, of course, there are many examples that involve numbers. The eight great paradoxes of leadership, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, the 7 habits of highly effective people, the 9 leadership dimensions, and 11 ways to lead. Holy smokes, I can't keep track of how many lists there are about ways to be effective leaders. My point is this, there's a lot of perspectives out there. It pays to open a book and read about those perspectives and to build that into your mosaic of how you're going to become an effective leader. But trust me on this, leadership involves uncertainty. Every day, my chief of staff, Rob Carolyn, and he walks in, he goes, there's so much gray area on this university. There's not a lot of black and white. There's not a lot of axiomatic answers to what we do. Leadership involves uncertainty, and you have to be prepared for that. Remember, leadership is a human endeavor, and human beings are uncertain in their very being. So we think back to the uncertainty that I faced when I first showed up on the scene, but we had great leaders. Melanie Linder in the back is our vice president for marketing and communications, central to our response efforts to COVID. But people said, it must have been a horrible year. And the fact is, it was an amazing year because what I saw was a team that bound together, that had a common purpose and a common vision for keeping the campus safe. And to see that in action was so gratifying as a new person to the campus, to see how all the components came together, and we were so effective, I think, as a team. And to others, I see Alex and Sarah, thank you for your leadership during that time, and many others in the crowd as well. It must have been a horrible year? No, not at all. It was an amazing, gratifying year where we really accomplished the purpose. And so one lesson is to to turn challenges into opportunities, and that's exactly what we did during that entire year. And I learned this, and we all learned this early in life. One of the greatest examples I had was my dissertation chair, who's now the provost at MIT. Her name is Cindy Barnhart. And we were facing some incredibly difficult challenges, writing some algorithms to support the United Parcel Service, or UPS. We had challenge after challenge after challenge, and one day we sat down. This was a week before UPS was showing up for a big program review. We had failed and failed and failed, and she just sat down with her calm demeanor, and she said, let's talk this through. And that sense of peace, and that sense of understanding, and that sense of competence kind of emerged in the discussions that we had. And I had a feeling that everything was going to be okay. And sure enough, a week later, when UPS showed up, they said to us, never have we seen such amazing progress by a team in our work with MIT. And so it was that day, as one of many days, where you see somebody in action, where you say, aha, those challenges can be overcome, and we can create great opportunities. Cindy is one of many examples that I've seen in that mosaic of leadership that I talked about earlier. But I think it's important for people to see how you as a leader wrestle with challenges. We're not just these boxes that in and spit out an answer on the backside. I think it's important for all of us to see how leaders think. And I try to do that as we talk through a lot of different challenging issues on the campus. And so how you think and how you show people to get from A to B through that complex set of possibilities, I think is very important. I've talked about this previously. I like to use analogies every now and then. Music is a great analogy. Play your canon. What is a canon? Does anyone know? A canon. Art Malloy, what's a canon? It's a weapon. It's not a weapon. It's a song, right? It's like a round. You know what a round is? Like row, row, row your boat. You've heard of row, row, row your boat. Can I get you to sing row, row, row your boat? Oh, they did it. I didn't expect that. Thank you. But it's a song that repeats itself over and over. It's a theme that varies. And I think as leaders, it's important as we choose how we communicate to play our canon, to play the song, to play our core values over and over so that people understand it. But you vary the way that you sing that song, because people will pay closer attention if you offer different themes of that song. Just like one of the most famous canons out there called Pachelbel's Canon in D, which is the most popular wedding song out there. You might have heard it. Pachelbel's Canon in D gets far more interesting as you go through the song, and then it ends with the very simple theme that they'd started with. Same theme with variations. And this is what it means to play the canon. As leaders, we need to communicate in a way that plays the canon. The vision of the university, the core values of the university, the things that we hold dear to ourselves are the things that we need to communicate. So sheet music, if you care, Pachelbel's Canon in D. I think it's important for all of us to really work hard on this, and people comment on this all the time, and that is use each other's names. Connect with one another in such a way that you know people's names and you pay attention. I just met Oliver and Noah on the way in. Thanks for being here today. First time we met, it's important for me to remember your names. We should all do this. I think it brings us a closer connection, and it's something very simple that we can focus on. And as leaders, those who are on our teams really appreciate the fact when you show the care to learn people's names and to use them regularly. It sounds simple. Again, these might not sound like profound leadership insights, but trust me on this really matters. Realize that everyone is great at something, literally. Everybody has a talent that you need to tap into. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders to figure out how it is that we do that. And every time I show a book on the right-hand side, this is a book that you might take a note of. We'll make sure that everybody has access to these. But The 52nd Floor was written by a couple colleagues of mine back at the Air Force Academy. And they talked about an anecdote where this idea of recognition that everyone can be great at something was a really profound thing that they found as authors. I think it's important to find joy in the success of others. It's kind of like when I became a parent, when my kids had great success at things, I took more joy in that than the own successes I had when I was younger. And the same is true when you become a leader. The members of your team are going to do amazing things. Relish in the joy of their accomplishments. And don't worry about your own accomplishments. Those will happen naturally if you build a really good team. And just as importantly is the ability for leaders to hit a reset button. What I mean by that is there are many times where we as leaders will do things routinely, especially at a university. We're going to have investiture ceremonies. We're going to have commencement ceremonies. We'll be on, I don't know, commencement ceremony for some of you, Cassie Gerhardt, number 35, right? 34, 32. And each time we have to hit the reset button because why? It's the first time for other people. And we need to be able to understand and appreciate the joy and have that sense of empathy to bring that excitement to others. I think it's important to commit to a lifetime of learning. There's so much out there. If you think you've learned everything, you're wrong. Even when you get PhDs in your disciplines, there's so much more to uncover in this world. And so commit to a growth mindset. Carol Dweck talks about that in the book called Mindset, which is that we can all grow and become smarter just by studying things and learning new things. So take advantage of learning new things. It might be a new esports game. It might be a new algorithm for doing the fixed charge transportation problem. That's my own area. But anyhow, you can learn new things. And then exercise the other side of your brain. So those who are technical oriented, focus on exercising the artistic side and the historical side. Those who are non-technical, there are certainly technical things that you can pick up as well. And this book, The Innovators by Isaacson, talks about the magic that happens when people who are educated on both sides of their brain, both on the scientific and technical piece and then the artistic side, can make amazing contributions to society. In that book, he highlights folks like Ada Lovelace, who was the daughter of famous poet Lord Byron. Ada Lovelace was also a mathematician and an early computer scientist. And she was the one credited with making the initial advances on the first mechanical computer. And because she had the ability to kind of think outside of the box, she was able to make the key mechanical advances to make that happen. So exercise both sides of your brain. As leaders, make sure you have it happen. Introversion, how many introverts in the crowd? Raise your hands. They don't want to. Right. Cassie, that's you. No. No, I'm a total introvert. Do you believe it? No, probably not. Those who see me in public, they say, wow, well, he's excitable and he's high energy. Introverts, total introvert. Kathy can attest to this. But introversion is not a barrier. And so there's great books like Quiet that talk about how introverts can find their way in what appears to be an extroverted world, but might not be. So take advantage of gathering your strengths as introverts to move forward. Extroverts, of course, gather your strengths as well to be effective leaders. Look for the chance to bring others along. As I mentioned, this is a team sport. Just like teammates on sports teams or esports teams work to develop each other, when we're leaders, we have to promote that sense of bringing others along as well. And that might be taking a mentor role with junior members of the campus. And I've done that repeatedly to try to bring people into the sphere of what it means to be a senior leader. Build trust. In other words, get to know the members of your team, but build that sense of trust. Make sure that the words that you use and the follow-up that you have meet the promises that you make. And so building trust is vital. Having a belief that you can change the world as well, having big aspirations, and knowing that you can have an impact on other people and on the entire world, I think is an essential component to being an effective leader. And always, always, always stand up for your core values. We at the university, of course, have outlined those in the new UND Leads strategic plan, but the organizations have core values. You all should have your own core values about the things that are inviolable, things that you hold dear to yourself that are important to the way that you work. Always stand up for those core values as you're a leader and as you're making those decisions. And there's an anecdote out there that talks about the connection of these words that you see before you that say, watch your thoughts, for your thoughts will impact your words. Watch your words, for those will impact your actions. Watch your actions, for those impact the habits that you develop. Watch your habits, for those define your character. And after all, it's your character that defines your destiny. Now, this phrase or this idea has been presented by a number of authors. Some say it was Gandhi, some say it was Margaret Thatcher, some say it was Margaret Thatcher's father, some say it was the head of high-low grocery stores in Texas back in 1970. I don't know who it's attributed to, but it's an interesting connection between the way that we think and the way that we act can certainly define the way and the places that we go. Last year, I defined the year as the year of gratitude. Let me remind you that we extended that to a decade of gratitude. It always pays to say thanks to the people that you're working with and the people that you're interacting with. And this year, however, I've changed it. I've changed the year of. This is the year of connection. So I encourage you to keep connecting. Connect with others on the campus. Connect with others in the local community. Make sure that you keep nurturing those connections throughout your careers. The number of people, and my kids will tell you this, that I used to say connecting matters, and they wondered why I spent so much time on it. You never know when a connection from 20 years ago comes into play now. And you have tools to do it, whether it's social media or LinkedIn or a wonderful contact list in your iPhone that never ever goes away. These are ways to remain connected, so keep connecting to others. When I think of UND Leads and the strategic vision that exists within UND Leads, it's, I think, a profound statement that we all came together, more than 700 people on our campus, who said, let's define something that we think is our shared vision for the future. And so UND talks about that. Now, let me offer a metaphor, and I shared a similar metaphor recently at the State of the University address, where if you think about a painting style, pointillisme or pointillism. George Seurat is a famous pointillist. It's a branch of Impressionist painting. It came right after the main Impressionist period, where he uses small dots of color. And those dots of color together form images. You see here the dots forming the image of a little girl, which is part of a bigger painting that looks familiar for those who are Ferris Bueller's Day Off fans. But this is a painting in the Chicago Art Museum, and it's called Sunday on the Banks of the Isle of the Grand Jatte. And it's a masterpiece that really is the collection of all these small dots. And it's those small dots, whether those dots are you or the programs or the buildings or facilities, that come together to form UND. And so let me share with you a closing image that I think captures what it means to be together. All the connections coming together to form something that's truly remarkable. This is what it means to be UND. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, President Armacost. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our first session of the 1883 Speaker Series. We will do this again next week, same time, same place. Dr. Art Malloy will be headlining that session. So please make sure to come back, and thank you all again for attending.